I know we're in a hurry now. This is my medicine. This is what keeps me strong when I'm away from home, but it connects me. And so I love making regalia. And I have a big family, so I hardly have anything left at home. But Tom asked if I could do some duplicates from a 1930 film that was here in our village. So it was my aunties, my father's sisters, Donna, Aunty Nuno. We think that one is Julia's mother. But some of the people weren't identified in the movie, so this is my medicine, and I'd like just to share quickly with you. Our first model. This is a duplicate copy of a blanket Mayana made for her sister, Aunty Maggie, and in 1980, Ootmadjali stood me up when the Umista opened. I did not understand it. She stood me there and she split her name. Ootmadjali Ogwa came on to me, and Ootma, I believe, went on to Lorraine Hunt. She is no longer with us. But my father cried. He said it was like Aunty Maggie was now naked. And Auntie Agnes told me this gave me the status of a man in the big house. But when I went out of the big house, I was just a woman. But so the name Ootmadjali came on to me. I asked my father, how do I repay Aunty Maggie? So 3 years later, this was 4 months after my father passed, and Aunty Maggie had set a date to have a potluck, a memorial potluck for her late husband, Uncle Andy. So my sister Marion and I offered to help her. When we went there, it was just very confusing. And even though we had just lost my father because of Aunty Maggie's age, my mother said yes, we would go ahead and help Aunty Maggie. Aunty Maggie did not know what dances other than Andy's, Hamatsa, and the that belonged to Dot and Mary. So my mother gave permission for Aunty Maggie to use our dances so that all her grandchildren could dance and get a name. So this is what we did. So my father, he loved Mayana, and she made this blanket, and she made two. And this was her signature. I call this the tree of life, but she has a circle of life in it. It looks like a cross, but I call it the four directions, the upside down mountains. And then they called these, was it $20?
Yeah, call your $20 abalone.
20, but I didn't have the square ones. And she also had the Ghana, when she wore this blanket, it didn't have a crest on the back, but it had two mirrors on each side that Mayana had got from her grandmother.
Georgetown's first wife.
And I had 9 mirrors that my mother gave me that had belonged to Misa. So it really meant a lot to put it on here. So this is a duplicate copy, and Mayana, my dad was so close to them. He felt bad because Mayana was born hunched, and he named his first daughter Miriam, my oldest sister, after Mayana, because no one named their children after her, and he just loved her. So my sister is named Mayana. This apron was inspired, Gwinty was at Clixiway and did a couple of plants and medicines. And so I went home and I played with this. You want to hold that up? And it represents plants and medicines of our people. Just the rose for the rosehip tea, twinberry that is used in our medicine, silverweed, blackberries, devil's club, chocolate lily, the what's that?
Hukum.
And we have a picture, we saw a picture of my great-grandmother digging it and eating it on the island, and Tom said, Auntie, we need regalia with our plants and medicines on it. He said people think we were hunters and gatherers, but our people tended gardens where they gathered. So that is what this represents. Gela, Councillor, thank you. I need people.
Jessica, stay here.
I was told that someone had identified the blanket that Nunu had on a canoe as sand dollars, but sand dollars only have 5. This has 6. So my interpretation is that it is the chocolate lily, the roots that we ate. Wotza has it on in the 1930 film. Dusty Cadwallader had it on in a picture when Ghana was elderly and she was with Watsi and Nikia. So I call it our chocolate lily with the circle of life. And I did it Tlingit style. It was just how I wanted to do it, with the narrow border. And this apron was in the 1930 film, but it was my first, hold it up. It was in the 1930 film, but it was all beaded. The first 2 I did applique, and then I did beads. And then I thought, oh, is it gonna take too long? So I only copied from the middle, and then I put my own design. And then it was, our beautiful Corinne said, Auntie, it should have the same as on the old apron. But the old apron, everything went one way, but I made it symmetrical. I had it going the other way. I didn't know if I could bead a beading needle, so I got big beads. And then I found out that you almost use the same needle and thread for the smaller beads, but I didn't know. And thank you, Creator, I could bead a beading needle.
There's also some evidence that our people were trading with Kaimas from our Salish neighbors to the south. And one of the things Aqua says in her book is that they were acquiring camas to Kinkum and to Dawadi. So we need to investigate and reconnect with that plant if it's truly growing in our villages. And so there's a suspicion that some of these 6-petaled flowers might also be camas, not the fruit plants, which is amazing.
Hase cannot. I can never, when Granny, no, this is, in 1975, my father and mother said they were going to have a potlatch in Alert Bay, Elise, and it was to show the wealth my mother brought, because our Quadyo felt my father was marrying beneath him. All our relatives, Gooskimu, London Harbour, Plowizes, Numgies, they all came together and my father ended up a rich man. She ended up the bird kingdom that Calvin has. All the dances that we showed, it was to show the wealth that our family owns. And so my sisters and I lived in Prince George, and we didn't have blankets. I had never made a blanket. And then my sister Marion remembered Granny Abaya. All her regalia she gave to the museum so that the family could access it. But one blanket she passed on to Marion, the eldest sister. Marion remembered she had this blanket in a little suitcase. It was collecting dust under her bed, and out came the blanket. And this is a duplicate copy. It was Hase Kanakkan Gagam. It was Granny came back and she taught us. So we measured it. Someone asked me why my borders were only 7.5 inches. I said, because that's what Granny's blanket was. And this is the Granny had stars. It was just the galaxy. Nothing is more beautiful when we look up at the sky. And Tom researched and said that Granny Abaya, that was a crust.
One of their houses was Tutu's star house. Tutu's
So I call this the tree of life. The copper, this represented her marriage to another noble. The whale, thought leaves some God. Her one and then the 4 directions. I'm sorry, I'm doing this really fast. And then I used, it's called liquid metal. Someone said culture, what we use to make our lives easier. I wasn't a beader, I didn't use sequins. I found this beautiful shiny material, so when I started doing shawls, I used liquid metal material. That's what all the shawls that Calvin has. I made him 22 for his house, and that is what this is. And the bears from our Tlingit house, and the jingles. My sister Marion had this. She said, I don't know if you can use this. I bought it a long time ago, probably at the thrift store. I think it's belly dancing.
I love that story.
Ghana has a blanket on, but this came way down, and I think it was a Hudson's Bay blanket that they didn't cut, because when I believe this is house designs, we reflect. And so in Ghana's blanket in the movie, it has another house. But then when I did it to measurements, then I realized after that, I'm missing a house, but then I looked at the picture and I can see stripes. So it was a Hudson's Bay blanket that they didn't cut down. So that is just the simple design on here. And in 1976, Dusty Cadwallader made my father a tunic with the diving raven. And I thought this represented stars, but Tom said I should talk to Wa. What did you say about
There's a Tlingit story that's with the diving raven, and it's a sea kingdom, there's starfish. So there's some stories we need to reconnect with.
So this, I never made the diving raven, and I've always wanted to, so I borrowed a design from John Livingston, but the wings were in, and it had a different design here, so I thought I will put a chief's face to represent my father, and I just changed it a little, and so that it could spread a bit. And yeah. And the apron, again, this is a copy of one of the old aprons in the 1930 film. So this was my first beading project. But I want, come out ladies. This is my medicine. When I say that this connects me, this is what I do. I have my brother George. I think there are almost 100 just in his immediate family, his grandchildren, his grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great, I can't keep up with them, but
There's 88.
So
89's on the way.
89, oh my goodness. But this is my medicine. Culture is medicine. This is what I do. But I would be richer if I could come and connect more and kwakwala, isan ola kwakwala. But I used to think it was because I was Nanotla, but no, I don't. It's just, it's there, it just doesn't want to come out. And if I spent time like this, gathering, it would come back. And I say, Gela Kasla, Andrea, you're so young and a warrior, our young warriors. Your daughter, she needs healing, but she's giving herself out to heal us all. It's such a gift, and I raise my hands to you all. It's medicine in my heart for what we have done, and I thank you for letting me rush and share what keeps me strong.